Hi guys, today we are going to be taking a look at this incredible tool, PeerGrade. PeerGrade is an amazing platform that allows students to anonymously give feedback to their classmates based on a preset rubric. When I tried this out with my students, they loved it and exceeded my expectations in terms of the quality of feedback that they were giving. They were incredibly engaged and they always ask when we're going to do it again. So I am really happy about this program and I hope other people will get on board. PeerGrade should be incorporated into the classroom for a bunch of reasons. When I conduct peer editing sessions in my middle school classroom, I have faced two problems traditionally. The first problem is that peer review can be anxiety-inducing for students, who may fear being judged by a classmate. With PeerGrade, submissions are anonymous, so students feel more comfortable sharing their work. Another problem I face with traditional peer review sessions is that students often leave generic or vague feedback for fear of hurting their classmates' feelings with their constructive criticisms. Again, the anonymity helps students feel more comfortable to leave more honest feedback, which will ultimately help both students strengthen their writing. One of the biggest reasons to use PeerGrade in the classroom, though, is because it promotes higher order thinking in students. They must use critical thinking while evaluating each other's work to give feedback on their writing. So what I'm going to be doing is going over exactly how to use PeerGrade and how to set up PeerGrade so that you can roll it out in your classrooms. So to first set up PeerGrade, the teacher must have a PeerGrade login. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to peergrade.io and then you go to the login page. So I always click sign in with Google. So this is your dashboard as the teacher, and you can see that I have already created some classes for my students, but what you're going to do when you first log in, if you've not yet created classes, is you're going to click on create class, and then if you have Google Classroom, which I know people at our school do, all you have to do is click Google Classroom, and PeerGrade actually communicates with your Google account. So what you can do is you select whichever class that you already have set up in Google Classroom, and they will automatically import the students from that class. So it's really handy that it communicates so well with Google Classroom. So once you've created your class, what you're then going to do is select the class that you are going to post the assignment for. So I'm going to click on this class, and let's just say I want to create an assignment. So what you're going to do is you're going to put in the assignment information so that students know which work they're going to upload. So let's just call this essay 1. Then you would put some information about the assignment. Okay, and so then you're going to click next. So this is something that I really love about PeerGrade, and it's that you can select a pre-made rubric to help students to give their, or to help guide their feedback. You can see that this is what the pre-made rubric looks like here, where you can see that it's an open short answer text box. And the first question says, mention something that your classmate did well. And then the student would write down the response in the text box. You could also add on to this rubric if you wanted to. But what you could also do is, if you don't really like this one, you can click on rubric library. And there are many different pre-created rubrics from people in the PeerGrade community that you can feel free to use, which is pretty cool. So then another thing, though, if you want to really customize what it is that you're doing, is you can create your own rubric. So let's say I really like this, or I want to change this first question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on edit. And you'll notice that I can update the question. So maybe I want to say, comment on the student's thesis statement. How clear is his/her position? So again, I can either set it up as a text answer. I can set it up as a scale, and I can customize exactly what I want my scale to be. I can also say whether the students have to comment or whether it's an optional question, or I can click on yes or no. So for this one, I would want to just do an open text box. And then I'll do the same thing just to show you here. I might say, look at body paragraph number 1. Does the student follow the organizational pattern, topic sentence with claim, context, lead in, text evidence, and analysis? So with this question that I'm asking students to comment on, you can assume that this is like the focus areas that I was teaching in class that I really wanted my students to learn and then now be critical thinkers and trying to identify it in their other peers. Okay, so when I'm satisfied with this, I'm going to click save. So you get the idea, and then you can create more sections. You can add more specific questions within each section. However you want to do it, you can. So then when you're ready, you're going to click next. So this third step to setting up for a particular assignment is called templates. So templates refers to the determined time frame that you're giving your students to upload their work and give feedback to peers. In my opinion, for middle school, the best one to set is the homework session. And even though it says homework, you don't have to have your students do it at home. Basically, it just provides a little bit more structure and oversight for the teacher to be able to know exactly who is prepared and ready and who is giving feedback when they're supposed to. So what I mean by that is when you click on select, you'll notice that there's a submission period. And then there is a submission deadline that you have to actually set. So in other words, you have to tell the students in advance, hey, you need to have your essay into PeerGrade by a certain date and time so that then the review period can begin. So that, to me, the students just really understood that really well, and it just helped to organize things better in my class. The other option, though, is the live session, which basically just gives a little bit more flexibility and leeway in terms of when students are doing their submissions and reviews. Again, I would recommend doing the homework session. So then when you're ready, you're going to click Create Assignment. So then you will see something that looks like this. So you can monitor however many students submitted their work. You can monitor however many students gave feedback. You can, so if a student flags something, that just is something that they need your help with or they need to draw your attention to. So I've had a student, for example, who uploaded an essay that only had the first body paragraph done. And so the student flagged it because she wanted me to know that this essay was not ready to be reviewed yet. So that's just like a communication tool between the teacher and the student. So this is your assignment dashboard. So what I want you to look at, though, is up here you have a couple of options, just again in terms of navigating the site. But what I want to draw your attention to is when you go to settings. So settings, we've already set up the details of the assignment. I want to go to feedback over here because it says number of reviews. Students have to review 3 submissions. So the first time I did this, I had students reviewing 5 submissions. And usually that is like it took way too much time and it was just too much for the students. So I set it at 3, and maybe that would even be best for the more advanced students, and maybe 2 would be better for grade level students. I also like this option a lot, to only allow students who have given feedback to see the feedback that they received. So I always click that, because otherwise you're really forcing the student to give the feedback to their peers before they're able to receive their own. Groups we do not have access to because we are only on the free plan. Same with categories. Rubric, I like to let the kids see the rubric before submission. And then advanced, I have the flagging option open as well. So those are the different settings that you have to work with, and those are my recommendations in terms of the settings that I would turn on. So one thing that I mentioned at the beginning was that the student work that is uploaded is anonymous. In other words, the students from peer to peer do not know necessarily who they are reviewing. However, the teacher does have access to seeing all of the feedback that is given between students. So that is really important because it holds the students accountable, and you know exactly how students are interacting. You know whether one student is giving quality feedback or needs improvement on the feedback. And it really can be a good way of looking at how well a particular student or all of your students are understanding the focus areas that you want them to understand through the editing process. So for example, if you have a student who completely misses capitalization errors, for example, that should show the teacher that, that student needs to work on their capitalization, and that student needs maybe some directed instruction or a mini lesson or something, or extra practice to help them, because obviously if they're not pointing it out in someone else's writing, that student is probably showing it in their writing as well. So it really does provide a lot of insights for teachers to target instruction for students, and helping the teachers to monitor exactly where students are at in terms of their learning. So from this teacher, and if this were a real class and these students were actually submitting and reviewing each other's work, we would be able to click on the individual students and see what their submission was. In other words, what piece of writing or what work they uploaded to have reviewed. And then we would get to see what feedback each student gave to those 3 other submissions that we are requiring them to review. And then on top of that, we would get to see how the student, what feedback that the actual student gets, and how their peers reacted to his or her work. So after the students have given their feedback to 3 other classmates, then the student has the opportunity to review their own work, and actually they can then reflect and respond to the comments and feedback that they received. So they can make a little thumbs up sign if they felt like the feedback was helpful or not. And I really like that feature, because sometimes with peer review, students just breeze over the feedback, but this really forces. So just a couple of tips before we end this video. So make sure that students do not upload a document with their name typed into the document. Otherwise, their work will not be anonymous, and I think that that's an important aspect of this program. Another tip I have for you is to check out the Getting Started page on PeerGrade's homepage. So when you go to peergrade.io, it looks like this, your initial login page. So there's a ton of awesome resources, tutorial videos for teachers, for students, pedagogy, student view. It's really, really helpful information as you're getting more and more familiar with the program. And the last thing that I would say is that you want to keep in mind that students can upload a variety of different document types when using PeerGrade. It does not necessarily just have to be a Word file or a Google Doc. They can upload PDFs, they can upload video files, they can upload a lot of different options. So encourage your students